Hey there, everyone. Before we start the show, we here at Popcorn for Dinner want to give a big shout out to our good friend and illustrator, Kyle Kedzik, for helping us celebrate making it to 40 episodes with some brand new custom artwork, which is now up on all of our social media accounts. We love it. We hope you love it. And if you're looking for some new custom artwork for your business or project, you can look him up on Facebook at Kyle Kedzik, or even drop him a line at kylekedzik@gmail.com. That's KYLEKEDZUCH@gmail.com. Hey, everybody, welcome back to Popcorn for Dinner. This is Jeff.
And Kelly.
This month is a very special month on Popcorn for Dinner. I don't recall exactly what it was that like spawned the idea.
Yeah.
Because we're always kind of throwing ideas back and forth of like, oh, we could do it this month, we could do it that month, this and that. And then this one just felt right.
Yeah.
It just felt like the thing that I really wanted to do. And it's kind of, we're not like a bad movie podcast.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, that's
Yeah.
not the point. It's not to be like, let's find terrible movies and make fun of them. And it sometimes it just happens in weird ways, like a movie that shall not be named, but rhymes with yield of screams, where it's supposed to be really good and it turns out to be something horrific and nightmarish. So this sort of feels like the antidote to that, like a different way where it's like these movies are sort of you expected to be bad.
Right.
But there's always that possibility since, I mean, this one, maybe there wasn't as much of a possibility because I have seen it before, but there's a bunch in the list that we have coming up that I have not seen before. And I know you haven't seen before where it's like, there's a possibility where one of these movies might turn out good.
Yeah.
It's not likely.
Yeah, it's not a high possibility.
Yeah, but it could happen.
There.
But I mean, Field of Dreams was supposed to be absolutely great.
Yeah.
And it wound up at least disappointing, to put it lightly. So it's like, yeah, you never know. So this month we sort of went specifically with movies that are sort of not meant to be bad, but you imagine there's almost no way they could be good because they are unnecessary sequels.
Yep.
And it's one of my favorite things in the world in general is just like when like a really good movie gets a dog shit sequel and it's just like, why?
How did that happen?
Yeah, and this one feels to me like the fucking poster child of that horrible like Hollywood mindset of like everything and anything could be a franchise.
Yeah.
Like you could do it over and over. It totally makes sense. This movie, the original movie, there is nothing to go on in terms of like, oh yeah, and then a next one.
Yeah.
And so they have to just make up garbage. Like Die Hard is like a similar vein to this, where it's like that movie is so specific. Like John McClane just happens to be in this building when terrorists show up.
Yeah.
Totally, it has nothing to do with him. It just so happened to be, and he gets mixed up in it. So the idea that they kept making movies was like, oh yeah, and then John McClane winds up he's at an airport and there just happens to be some terrorists and stuff. The third movie does it a little differently, which I hope we watch it someday so that we can see it, because it takes that formula and kind of turns it on its head. But then the next two are absolutely the exact same thing, where it's just like, how did he get wrapped up in this again? So in this case, this movie is it does it in the worst ways too. Like we have to just jump into it to explain all the ways that this sequel is just nonsense. And the movie that we are talking about this week is Speed 2: Cruise Control. Which I know, right? Like it's so funny. It's also in that vein of movies where it's like, just put the two and get on with it.
Yeah.
We don't need a subtitle. Come on. And the fact that it's a pun is even worse.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like cruise control. Get it? Because they're on a cruise. Let's go. Like, no, let's not. This is unfathomably Keanu-less.
Yes.
Like, that I think is where it sort of begins with the just absolute nonsense of this kind of movie. And it feels like it might be a little sexist, but action movies in and of themselves are kind of that way, where it's pretty much like the tough guy who saves the girl.
Yeah.
You know, it's like sometimes the girl gets like a punch in every once in a while, but for the most part, you know, Holly Gennaro doesn't really do anything in Die Hard. She just gets saved by him.
Yeah.
And surprisingly, though, Speed, Annie is a much bigger like partner with him. You know what I mean? It's like she has to drive the bus. And she, you know, even if she's, you know, hysterical because, oh my God, you know, the bus driver got shot. Now I have to drive it. And I'm not even that good at driving and all that. Oh my God. But she does an admirable job. And he does have to save her at the end and all that. But she seemed a little more in the game than most like damsel girls. And then this movie, like, for one, the fact that you bring back the damsel is the weirdest thing. Like, obviously, I love Sandra Bullock. I have no qualms with Sandra Bullock.
One of my notes is that it's not even fair how adorable she is.
It truly, and it's a testament to how bad this movie is that I hated her. Like, I hated Annie in this movie.
Yeah, she wasn't great.
No matter how much I may love Sandra Bullock, I hated Annie in this movie. And I was like, maybe it's just been years and years since I saw the first one. But one of my notes very shortly into the movie is literally just like, was she this much of an airhead in the original movie? Because it seems like she's a fucking moron and cannot pick up on anything and is just a terrible, weird person. Like the whole opening thing with her and Tim Conway. Tim Conway. It is absurd that we have done 2 movies with Tim Conway in them on our show. And one of them is The Shaggy DA and the other one is Speed 2. Like, Tim Conway deserves better, I'm sure. But yeah, that whole sequence with her learning like trying to get her license back with Tim Conway, and then it gets bookended at the end, where it's just like, how is she possibly this oblivious to the damage that she is causing?
Yeah.
Like, is this supposed to be funny? Because it's not.
Yeah, like all she knows is how to drive fast and reckless because she had to drive that big bus.
Yeah, I mean, that's what seems crazy. Is like she's not like terrified of it. It's not like PTSD where it's like, oh, I don't want to drive fast at all.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that turned her into a completely reckless monster.
Apparently.
Who like can't not run into people on the road and stuff. Like it was absurd. And then many, many other things she did throughout the rest of the movie. I was just like, this is nuts how bad it is.
Yeah.
And something I found looking up about this movie, practically everyone who did it to fund something else. Like, I was so surprised when the final credits started to roll because I didn't pay attention at the beginning of if they had like the you know, director and all that kind of stuff. So the first credit that pops up is director, and it's Jan de Bont, which I think is how you pronounce it, but I don't know. But I was like, wait a minute, he did the first Speed and he did Twister, and like he was responsible for this? I couldn't believe it. And then I looked into it and it was like, yeah, contractually. Because they optioned a sequel for it and he had to do it.
Okay.
And then Sandra Bullock and Keanu Reeves weren't contractually obligated to do it, which is why Keanu Reeves was just like, nah. And he bailed on it. And Sandra Bullock was like, well, I'd be pretty much the star.
Yeah.
And I get a big hefty paycheck and that would help me get Hope Floats made. So I'll do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then Jason Patrick, who plays the new Keanu, Alex, which at least they didn't just recast Jack.
Yeah.
But it still is absurd that it's just like the exact same guy again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You could tell that the script was written to be Keanu, and then they just added that beginning sequence where she talks about how they broke up.
Yeah.
Because the whole movie acts as though we should give a shit about their relationship, even though we've only known about it for as long as the movie's been on. You know what I mean? So I'm just sitting there like the scenes where they're like fighting and he's like, oh, about to ask her to marry him and stuff like that. And I was like, I have no idea what their relationship is like.
Yeah.
I don't know their past or anything like that.
She made it seem at the beginning, she mentioned it was their anniversary, and just the way that she talked about it made it seem like it was like their first anniversary.
Or like a few months.
Yeah.
Or something.
Like,
yeah. It didn't seem super serious.
Yeah. It's not like, oh, we're celebrating our 5-year anniversary or 10-year anniversary, whatever. It's, Like, we've been dating for 3 months.
Yeah, it was super silly. But Jason Patrick, also funded something else with his paycheck from this movie. And just the biggest, like, come on, guys, you should have realized what you were doing, is that Jan de Bont said that Speed was a, like, one movie concept.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there's not really room for a sequel to Speed.
Yeah.
It's such a ridiculous thing, like the bus that can't slow down. I mean, to use the Simpsons joke,
Yeah.
the bus that couldn't slow down is like, what else are you going to do? I read about pitches for this movie, which included the plane that has to fly through the Andes Mountains but can't go higher than 10,000 feet or it will explode. Like, it's literally just, they just like went like,
Yeah.
like assembly line style of like, give me a vehicle, give me a thing it can't do or it'll explode, and we got a sequel.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is that this movie doesn't even technically have that. It's not even like, if this boat doesn't do blank, it'll blow up. Like, no, not really. It has nothing to do with that.
I guess if it doesn't turn or stop.
But that all, I mean, I guess. I mean, but that is just like a you know, it's not like a way that, I mean, I guess it is sort of booby trapped because Geiger has like taken over, but it's like, if it runs into this oil tanker, it will explode, which is like, yeah, that's just how boats work.
Yeah.
It's not like you know, like it's been jury rigged in some crazy way. It's like, no, it's just that if it runs into something bad will happen. Like, yeah, no, that's how that typically goes.
Yes, that's as expected.
Yeah, normally. But yeah, he specifically said that Speed should not have had a sequel, and then
Had to come back.
had to come back and do the sequel. And then he kind of like took the reins of the idea for it because of the fact that they were all so silly that he apparently had a nightmare, like a recurring nightmare of a cruise ship that like runs into the land and like into a city or something.
Oh.
So he basically based the whole script on the final like 5 minutes of the movie. Actually, sorry, more like the final half an hour of the movie.
Oh my God.
I couldn't believe like how close they were and how much time was left in the movie. I noticed like
it was real time.
it really, I mean, it felt longer than real time. And I mean, truthfully, I don't know exactly the like conversion from knots to miles per hour to whatever.
Yeah, it would be miles per hour.
Yeah, but it did not seem like they were as far away as they kept saying they were from the boat. Like, they could see the other boat from their boat, but they said that they were like 60 miles away. And I was like, no, you are not.
Oh, okay. So 1 knot is essentially 1.15 mile per hour. So if they were going 17 knots, they were going like just under 20 miles an hour.
Okay. I mean, I guess for boats and their giganticness, that must be absurd. But I think it's just funny that it's like, I don't know anything about boats.
That wasn't their cruising speed. That was the speed they were going heading towards the... Oh my God.
The oil tanker.
Yes.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Okay.
I just mean that it doesn't seem crazy to me because I have absolutely no frame of reference.
Yeah.
So it's like, they're going 17 knots. And I'm like, whoa, that's crazy, I guess. The movie seems to make me feel like it might be crazy. So I guess it's crazy. But I don't actually know knots or anything like that. But none of it seemed like it made... like it was like consistent in terms of how far away they were, how fast they were going, anything like that. But the fact that whole fucking crash sequence takes the last half hour of the movie was utterly absurd. Like, I know that the first Speed had the whole like the bus blows up, but then there's more movie because then he gets on the subway train and there's a subway fight and all that. It's like, but at least that was somewhat interesting. And you know, I wasn't just bored out of my skull like watching a knot counter like tick down and then that fucking Hobbit navigator guy going like 4 knots. 3, 2, and then when it finally stops, he sounds confused that it says 0 now, and it's like, you're not moving. Of course it's 0. They're like, 0? And then he says it again later, and I was like, did they miss that cut? Like they weren't supposed to put the first one in, and they missed it, and the second one was supposed to be when he says 0, or what happened there? But he realized it twice. Yeah. Which just sort of goes to show how poorly put together this movie is. But overall... there were so many moments in this movie where I could feel the ghost of the first movie, where you're like, oh, you're doing that. Oh, you're doing that. Like later when it was like, oh, look, Alex is going under the boat. Like, remember when Jack went under the bus? Great. It's just so like, come on, man.
Yeah.
I didn't understand so much. Like, not even so much of like, the movie didn't explain it well, but it was like the movie explained it. And then I was like, wait, movie, are you serious right now? Because it's like, okay, so you got Alex, who is essentially just Jack again.
Yeah.
Same guy. It's the fact that in that opening motorcycle chase, which was absurd, the fact that a truck with stolen computers needs to get run down off the road by a motorcycle cop.
Yeah.
In order to like subdue them. Like, what are they going to do? Like, cross the border and you can't follow them or something? Like, if you know that there's a truck with stolen computers in it, like, tail it discreetly until they get where they're going and then be like, gotcha. Like, why is he chasing them? And the fact that the movie just starts and they're chasing him is like, okay, so we don't have to explain how we got into this.
Yeah.
But now he's chasing a truck with stolen computers on his motorcycle.
Yeah, trying to lure him into or guide him into a cop stop.
Yeah, like a roadblock. Which still, it's just like the fact that it like goes off the road and the truck driver jumps out of it and it goes God knows where.
Yeah.
Like all of that, like how much damage is being done by this chase? That is like, is that really going to be offset by like, we got them, we got the stolen computers? Like if this dude was like, he just murdered some people, we need to chase him.
Yeah.
Or he has hostages or something. Like even that I would be like, don't chase him.
Yeah.
But like if the stakes were a little higher, I'd maybe understand why they are chasing him. But it was like, he has a truck full of stolen computers. Like just no, that's not enough.
Yeah.
That's absurd. I did sort of like the fact that Mac was back, the guy from the first movie, the cop guy who's in just that scene. And I was like, it's weird that Jack and Alex both had the same commanding officer on the LAPD.
Yeah.
Just so happens, like, again, clearly was supposed to be Keanu, and they were just like, well, now his name is Alex. He is a different man. But yeah, he chases him down, and immediately you see the, like, shoddy sequelness to it, because if you remember in the first Speed, the start of that movie is all those people stuck in that elevator, and then Jack and Harry go and like save them and whatever, and there's a mad bomber who is Dennis Hopper, who is the bad guy for the rest of the movie. Like the opening of the movie is connected to the rest of the movie.
Yeah.
And in this one, it is just a nonsense motorcycle stunt set piece to show you that Alex is a daredevil or something. And so you can already see the fucking like string falling off of just like, oh wait, and we need like an action sequence to start it, but there's no way to connect anything to this ridiculous villain that we have set up for the rest of the movie. So it just has to be something completely random.
Yeah.
And I did not enjoy that so much. And then you get the like conflict between Annie and Alex, which is so like, I wonder what that was like. I mean, I can assume what it was in the original script with Keanu, where it would be just like, you keep getting into dangerous situations and I can't handle that anymore.
Yeah.
And okay, blah, 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 whatever. We're going to go on a vacation and have a good time and not be crazy or whatever.
Right.
But in this movie, it's, they change it so that he is a cop and she knows he's a cop, but she doesn't know how much of a cop he is.
Yeah,
like,
she thinks he has like a beat at the beach.
Yeah, which is like, I guess, but at the same time, you can't be that surprised that he's in dangerous situations if he's a cop.
Yeah.
Like, even if he has a fucking beat on the beach, like, what if a fucking gunfight breaks out on the beach?
Yeah.
And he has to do something about it? And are you going to get mad at him for that?
Yeah.
Like, her concept of him is so ridiculous and such an obvious, like, oh shit, we gotta put a new character in here instead of the guy who we already know stuff about. And it doesn't make any sense. And they were just like, okay, just move along, just keep the movie going because the rest of it gets so good. We just have to get there. And so Yeah. So he's already bought her tickets to this cruise, right? Like,
yeah, he was going to give them to her at dinner that night.
Right. So they have tickets to a cruise. They're going to go on this nice, relaxing, like Caribbean cruise or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed especially absurd to me that like this was one of the moments of like her being so like vapid and kind of stupid in this movie, is that it's like she was furious that he was like a motorcycle action cop.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, tickets to a cruise? And she's like, oh, okay, fine, we're good. It's like, wait a minute, he's still that cop.
Yeah.
It's not like he said, like, I'm going to quit being this cop and let's go live a quiet life somewhere else. It's like, as soon as this cruise is over, he's going back to being a cop.
Yeah.
And you're still going to have a problem with it. But who cares? We're on a cruise, whatever.
Yeah.
So they get on the cruise, and I don't know if I have ever seen someone, like, it's of no fault of his own, because there's nothing he can do about it. He's Willem Dafoe. But I don't think there has ever been a more obvious bad guy in a movie where it's like the first time you see him, he is berating the attendant to the cruise because his golf clubs aren't there.
Yeah.
And he's just like freaking out on him. And it's just like, if people didn't know at the start, like, I don't know how much the trailer gives away.
Mm-hmm.
I assume it shows him probably,
Yeah.
but I feel like, and maybe this was just because I saw it as a kid, and so I was very, I probably didn't sit around watching trailers before I saw a movie. It was just like, a movie, let's watch it.
Yeah.
So I like had no idea that it would be like Dennis Hopper as the bad guy in Speed, because it's just like he's briefly in the beginning of the movie, but you kind of don't see him that much. And then he's on the phone most of the time. He's calling Jack.
Yeah.
And then you finally see him and everything. So this movie, the fact that it's just like he's right there in your face, it's just like, oh my God. So he's clearly evil.
Yeah. That was one of my notes. So obviously Willem Dafoe is the bad guy.
Of course.
Like,
no chance he's anything else.
Yeah.
But
guy.
like he just, I wrote into my notes at one point, I was just like, so Geiger's plan is absurd, I'm sure. Because we hadn't even gotten into it yet, like really into it. And I was just like, there's no way that this is going to be as like relatively simple, like air quotes, as Dennis Hopper's in the first movie, where it's literally just like, there's a bus, if it goes under 50, it's going to explode, fucking pay me.
Yeah.
And that's really what it comes down to. And it's like, you eventually find out that it's a bit of revenge because he was a cop and they fucked him over and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So the revenge angle of this movie, I definitely like saw coming in the vaguest sense.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, there's probably some revenge going on here. I did not expect what the revenge was for. And I also was like, did anybody buy this? In the 90s, like, were there people who didn't know, like, since 1997, it's not even like it's like 1991 or something where it's like even then computers were fucking everywhere. But by 97, I guarantee you, like, most households probably had a computer at that point. And so the fact that fucking Geiger says that he got copper poisoning from working with computers too much.
Yeah.
It was like, nobody bought this, right?
Yeah.
There's no way. Like, I almost thought it was like a ruse or something, because I was like, that doesn't happen ever. And it's not even like but it's a famous myth that it might happen, so a movie will, you know what I mean? Like, I used a microwave too many times close to my head and I got cancer. Or it's like, that's not how it works. But there's enough like mythology around it that you could maybe throw it into a movie or something. I don't understand where the copper poisoning would have come from if he's just like programming computers, not even building computers.
Yeah.
As far as I can tell, he's just making programs for them, and it somehow poisons him with copper.
I don't know. He said something about like the electromagnetic field or something like that.
Which
like,
is even more absurd.
Right.
It's like that's not even physical contact with something. You got copper poisoning through the air.
Yeah.
From a computer. What? So that was obviously insane.
Yeah, maybe he was fired because he went insane.
He got copper poisoning from all that copper he was eating.
Yeah.
And
Those pennies he was pounding.
And then he blamed the company that fired him because he's a lunatic. Oh man, it's so absurd. But like the start of his plan, because I remembered bits and pieces because I had seen this movie before.
Yeah.
And so there were things that I had remembered. One of them was definitely not the leeches. I don't know how that like completely blew past me. Like, you know, like as a kid I watched it and it didn't cement itself in my brain.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you pulled them out, I was like, wait a minute, what are the leeches for? Like, why is this happening?
What?
I mean, by the end, he sort of explains it. Like, these little guys suck the copper out of my blood, which is like, I don't know enough about leeches or blood to know if that's how that works. But at least that is like enough of like, okay, if you have copper poisoning, then I guess I understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
It still doesn't make sense how you got copper poisoning, but okay.
Also,
and I get that it makes you creepier.
Yeah. I mean, it also plays into this guy's fucking insane.
Yeah, clearly.
I don't think that's how leeches work.
Yeah. But what I find so funny is that it's like this dude like has such a plan. Like he has so much shit figured out for his plan. Because essentially what he does is he like takes over the ship. He like hacks into all the computers on the ship because it's like the most automated ship on the seas. And he hacks into it because he created the programming and shit for it.
Right.
And he makes it aim for a specific place, which is something that I'll get into later because it seemed especially absurd. Like his computer skills are off the chain.
Yeah.
In terms of what his programs can do, especially in 1997.
Yeah.
But he hacks into the computer. He aims it to a certain place. He tricks them into getting everybody off of it, or he tries to.
Yeah.
Which definitely confused me because I was like, so he doesn't want hostages? What does he plan to do? Like if everyone left and then anyone found out that like a ship got hijacked and is going somewhere, it would get intercepted. You know what I mean? Like someone would try to stop it on its way to wherever it was going. But if he has hostages like he does on accident because his plan doesn't work out right, that's the only reason he really is able to like make it, I guess. Because if everyone got off the ship and then told someone like, hey, by the way,
I mean, I guess they abandoned ship far enough out that the cruise ship will get there quicker than the lifeboats, unless another random ship happens upon the lifeboats.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's too much
so
thought.
Convoluted.
Yeah, it's super convoluted. But he gets a bunch of the passengers off by faking fires, which it seemed to me was only a way to show off possibly the most infuriating part of the character of Alex. Like Alex as a character is such like, you know, you're just sitting there and you're like, you should have been Keanu.
Yeah.
Even if this movie's terrible, you should have been Keanu. Like the whole point of fucking Speed was Keanu and Sandra Bullock, and the fact that you're not makes me not like you. You're not necessarily doing anything wrong. Like Jason Patrick doesn't do anything where I'm sitting there like, this guy fucking sucks at acting.
Yeah.
He's just not Keanu, and his character is terrible, so I hate him. But he brings up early in the movie that he like has an exquisite like gut feeling. You know what I mean? Like that is what he is good at. Is just
having good instincts.
Yeah. And let me find fucking what I wrote because I was like, oh yeah, I just wrote Alex's gut is definitely going to lead him to figure out shit he has no fucking business figuring out. Like that is the only reason for him to be like, oh, I get gut feelings and they're always right.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, so that's just so that you can wander around a boat that you don't understand.
Yeah.
You know nothing about boats, and yet you're the one who comes up with all the plans for how to like foil this hijacking, even though you don't know how boats work.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, it's because of my gut. But the fires that he fakes with sulfur smoke, which Alex smells and realizes that wouldn't be a real fire smell. These fires are fake. And I was like, how could you possibly know that?
He said it was a smoke bomb. So
but I mean the fact that he is correct that the fires are fake, it's like, you know, there might just be sulfur in whatever he's using to light fires.
Yeah.
Like, what? But it's like, no, it's his gut, so he's right.
Mm-hmm.
And since he figures that out, the last boat of survivor, or like the last boat of people trying to get off, the last lifeboat, like doesn't leave on time because he keeps blah 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 whatever.
He's dicking around.
Yeah, I hated that whole sequence of the lifeboat going down, and then they're like, it gets caught, and then the angle's weird, and then oh no, what's gonna happen? And I was like, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing is going to happen. They're going to just bring these people back up eventually. This is going to be a gigantic waste of time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, of course, not going to make any sense because that one lady tries to, like, get out of the boat and come to him. Like, oh, help me. Get me out of here. And he's like, no, don't. It's going to tip the boat. And then it does. And two people fall out of the boat into the cold, icy waters. It didn't look like they were wearing life jackets, so they are dead. Oh, it doesn't matter because they got sucked onto the boat.
Yes.
That's right.
But I don't think that the waters were icy because they were in the Caribbean.
Well, it was nighttime. I don't know. I don't know how water works. Anyway.
It wouldn't have been icy. It wouldn't have been like, heated pool warm.
Like a jacuzzi or anything. But,
yeah.
Okay. But either way, it doesn't matter. They got sucked onto the boat and they're dead. They're dead no matter what.
And then her husband in the background of the scene says, don't worry, it wasn't your fault. Like, fuck you. It was totally absolutely her fault.
Also, was that not the mom and dad of the deaf girl?
Yes.
Okay, because they were monsters and they deserved to die.
Absolutely.
That was possibly one of the like cruelest things I've ever seen. Because they show that little girl earlier and she's sign languaging to Alex and they're talking and she's like flirting with him because she's a teenager and she's like, oh, he's cute. Yeah, he's so cute. Which leads to one of the most awkward moments of the movie later.
Yeah.
But it's like she's deaf. Her parents are kind of like annoyed with her, it seems, at the dinner table.
Yeah.
And then later when they go down for like the gala thing or whatever, and she's wearing a dress that clearly makes her feel good.
Yeah.
And you'd think, especially with someone who's probably like ostracized all the time, that it's like, just let her feel good for a second.
Yeah.
And they say she looks like a clown.
Mm-hmm.
They tell her to her face that she looks like a clown. And I was like, these are the worst parents. And then she wanders off because she's moody and she's a teenager and they just called her a clown.
Yeah.
And she wanders off and they're just like, whatever. And
she'll be fine.
She'll be fine.
What?
She's on a boat in the middle of the ocean. And you're just going to let her wander off like she could just wander up to the deck and then fall into the fucking ocean for all you know.
Yeah, like, not hear someone coming or something. Like,
absurd.
Even if she didn't have any amount of hearing loss, if it was just a 15-year-old girl, don't call them a clown. That's awful. And don't let them just wander around a strange place, especially at night.
But yeah, so the boat that the woman literally just like takes a weird step on and it flings people off the other side of the boat does nothing when both Dante and Alex are clambering around on it like monkeys.
Yeah.
And it does nothing. It doesn't even move an inch. And I was like, this is the stupidest fucking sequence in this movie. Just get it over with. It takes so long for it to just be like, yep, all these people stay on the boat.
Yeah.
Like, great. You could have figured that out so long ago with so much less dumb shit happening. Like, I get it that you're an action movie, so you need like an action set piece or something. But when it's so clear what is going to happen, and especially when the characters suck so much.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God.
I know that there were a couple of like annoying people on that bus in the first movie, but for the most part, you kind of felt for those people because it was just like, I'm just on the bus.
Yeah.
I was like going to work or some shit. Like I was just living a regular old life and now I'm in the middle of all this craziness.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it's just like, oh, all these fucking cruise guests are a bunch of rich, dumb assholes that I don't fucking care about, even in the slightest. Like there's not one Alan Ruck in the bunch. You know, the guy who plays Cameron in fucking Ferris Bueller. His character, as much of like a sort of dick as he is, because he's like a tourist or something, I think.
Yeah.
You still feel for that dude when shit gets like starts getting real and he's just like, oh my God, I don't even know.
Yeah.
You know, there's like true, like small, quiet, somber moments in that first movie as these like normal people realize it's life or death.
Yeah.
And then in this movie, it's literally just a bunch of dumb rich people, the fucking sequence with the smoke coming in the vent, and they're like, everyone get naked and cover the vents. This is silly joke time.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't care about any of you. I don't care if you die. Like, if that whole hallway fills up with smoke and kills you, I don't care. I wish it would, and we could just move on.
Who is the actor that played the big guy that was in?
Oh, I never remember his name. I just know he's from Friends.
Yes.
Where he dances with Joey, and
he's a Trigger.
Yeah. The like,
super.
Yeah. But he is a guy, he's in so much stuff that, you see him and you're like, oh, okay, this guy.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's hard to necessarily hate him.
Yeah.
But just as like a concept, these characters, they don't matter at all. I don't like them. I don't care if they die. Like that whole scene, the whole fucking ending when the boat is crashing and they're on the deck and just like running around like idiots. And at one point they yell like, save us. And I'm like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
There is no one near you, and no one on the ground could do anything if they could hear you.
Yeah.
It's like you are on the thing that's destroying everything.
Yeah, and making all of the noise, destroying it, muffling your screams.
Yeah,
Just
it's like you are screaming to nothing.
and hope for the best.
Yeah, it's the stupidest bunch of characters in the world. I hated it. But Geiger, like, his plan apparently is to get everybody off the boat, and then he's gonna drive it somewhere and it's going to crash into an oil tanker, and then he's going to escape with a bunch of jewels that are for some reason on this fucking boat. As soon as those jewels showed up in that sequence where it was like, guess what, cruise guests?
Yeah.
Here's something fun for you. A giant diamond collection.
Yeah, like $1 million worth of diamonds here just tonight.
Like, how is that entertainment? How is
Rich
that?
assholes.
It's just like they have a singer on the boat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so there, it's like, okay, that's a thing. Like,
Yeah.
that's an actual piece of entertainment. Like, if you had like the bare naked ladies on the boat, maybe I'd, understand why that is there as entertainment.
Yeah.
But the idea of just like, we are going to have a bunch of people walk around and drape diamonds over their arms and show you them. Like, apparently you could buy them. It seemed like one of the guests was purchasing it. And I was like, if this is a collection, is it someone's collection? Like that is showing it off? Or is this
from a store? I don't know.
like for purchase? Like the whole point is to show it off and have people buy it?
I guess.
I don't understand. It didn't seem like a thing that's real. It seemed like a horrible fucking, like a shoehorned way to get a bunch of riches onto the boat for Geiger to steal.
Yeah, I don't know. The cruise I went on was not that fancy.
Yeah.
We played bingo. It was great. I won $160.
Oh man. But
yeah, absolutely. Like
it's so silly that
they're just there for it to become a jewel heist, which
yeah.
I like wrote a note. I was like, oh, so he's doing all this stuff to get the jewels.
Yeah.
And then he had the whole like revenge plan, and I was like, oh, so it's just revenge? Like the jewels just happen to be here? Oh no, he did want them. Okay.
I had the exact same train of thought where it's just like, oh right, I guess it's about diamonds. And then it was like, oh no, it's about revenge. Like, oh, it's about revenge and diamonds, I guess. Okay.
Two birds, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like I don't know. But the funniest thing to me, and it was both like the moment where it was like, how the fuck did a guy who plans all of this out do something as stupid as this, and how does nobody notice how stupid this is? And then also on the other hand, it was another moment of Alex's gut being total bullshit. That one is the funniest part, to my opinion. But like he's freaking out about golf at the beginning, or he's freaking out about his golf clubs.
Right.
And then later they're all on the deck, like he's sitting by the bar and Annie talks to him for like a second and then walks back over to Alex with their drinks, and he's being a little bitch about it. And he's like, oh, why don't you talk to your new boyfriend over there?
It's like, she's on a fucking cruise. Let her socialize.
Yeah, and it was literally like he clearly didn't like want anything to do with her. It's not like he was like, oh, hey, baby. It was just like, oh, hi. You are also a guest here. Okay. But Alex gets suspicious because the golfer doesn't want to watch golf.
Yeah.
Because he's like, the game, the tournament's been on the TV behind him and he hasn't looked at it once. I was like, oh, great cop skills, you dipshit. Like, that's all it takes for you to be suspicious of someone. Like, I've heard he likes this sport and he isn't looking at it right now.
Yeah.
Better suspect him of something.
Yeah, right.
But what was absolutely absurd, and it's like, I guess I didn't pay that close of attention of the golf bag that he had, But as soon as he like got his clubs and you realize that like, oh, they are,
Yeah, all the
detonators
components
and
stuff.
bombs and whatever.
Mhm.
But it's like his entire bag is drivers. He doesn't have any any fucking
Yeah.
wedges
Yeah.
or putters. It's literally a fucking golf bag of like 13 drivers. It's like anybody would be suspicious of that.
Yeah.
Be like, wait a minute, are you like a hole in one every round kind of guy?
And then you
also
it.
break it as soon as you get it because you're like, every club only has one in it. And you snap it over your knee and use the next one. And then he pulls out the golf balls that are like part of his bomb things. And they're absurdly huge.
Yeah.
Like, I have seen plenty of golf balls in my life.
Yeah.
None of them are that big. Like, there is a uniform golf ball size.
Yeah.
And those are not it. Those are so much bigger. Like, they are almost tennis balls. It's like, who? Like, I get that there's probably not, and especially like back then, that there wasn't like a huge like TSA, like, let me look at all your shit before you get on this boat kind of thing. But it's like, if anybody saw either of those two components, they'd be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Like, why do you only have drivers? Why are your golf balls gigantic? Why are you bringing golf clubs on a cruise?
Yeah. Yeah. Like, and drivers specifically.
Yeah, like are you going to set it up on the deck and just fucking chalk them out into the ocean or something? Like,
that's polluting. Please don't do that.
And you might get a hole in one in a whale's blowhole. Like, all of that was absurd. But then later, when they don't know who's doing this, because he calls to the bridge and he's just being creepy, and he's like, oh, Mr. whatever the fuck his name was, like Giuliano or whatever. I love Tamira Morrison, the guy who played him. I think he's New Zealand. I think he's a Kiwi.
Okay.
But he's been in a ton of stuff, and I've always loved him. But I felt bad for him in this movie. But he's talking to him, and he's being creepy about it, whatever. And then Alex busts in because he's like, "Hey, I'm LAPD," and it's like no one out here is like, that doesn't matter here.
Yeah.
Your jurisdiction is so far away. Yeah, and you are not on duty, and none of this, none of it fucking matters to you. Like, obviously, you care because you don't want to, like, die or something.
Right.
But it's like, none of this is your shit to deal with, and also, you're not qualified.
Yeah.
But he just busts into the bridge, and he's like, I'm taking over, I guess.
Yeah.
And he starts figuring out...
Oh, because the captain's dead.
Oh, yeah. It's like, well, then it becomes fucking Giuliano's job. It doesn't become your job. It's not just like the first person to raise your hand after the captain's dead becomes the captain.
Yeah.
Like, me.
I've been dying to be captain.
Yeah. I don't know anything about boats, though. Is that going to be a problem? But he's trying to figure it out, and he's like, whatever. The explosives must have been something, round that can roll around, like a ball, like golf, Geiger. And I just went, fuck you, movie.
Yeah.
That is what I wrote down, because I was like, his fucking gut, again, is just like, it must be round, like, assumptions, complete assumptions. You have no idea what these things were or are, or where they are, or what they have done. You don't know anything. Like, that is my biggest thing. He never, like, finds a clue and figures it out. It's literally just assumption, and then he's right. And it's like, it's because of his gut or whatever. But that moment was, like, both insulting and hilarious. Just the, like, golf, Geiger. Like, that's the worst game of Duck, Duck, Goose on the planet. Golf, Geiger. But yeah, so, like, the fact that his plan is to, like, fake fires, to get everyone off the boat, to send it towards a oil tanker that seemingly has done nothing to him.
They're just part of the distraction.
He just happened to be there so that he can blow that up, and then he can get onto his seaplane that he has rented and parked in the middle of the ocean.
Yeah.
And is just waiting for it. Like, did he hire someone to, like, fly it over there and then go swim back to the rental place? Did he get there days ago and fly it there and, like, anchor it? Because there's no anchor on it, obviously. He just gets in it and starts flying.
Yeah.
So there's nothing that's keeping it in the spot that it's like. It's not like a dirt road behind some bushes where you can, like, hide something. It's the ocean. How is that plane not, like, just swept off to sea, never to be seen again?
Maybe he started it at shore and that's just where it wound up.
Yeah, he's like, oh shit, that was supposed to be way over there.
Yeah, it's just gradually drifting out.
But it's clearly not, because he goes to it.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
But like all of that is so absurd. But like his computer hacking skills and the programs that he makes
ridiculous
are so absurd. Like, and it was one thing that I didn't realize until way later in the movie when they started showing the oil tanker. Mm-hmm. Because there were words that were like thrown around that I didn't understand what was going on. And then finally it clicked and I was like, I've never noticed this before in my life, but holy fucking shit, how advanced are his computer systems? For one, there's a moment when Alex, I almost called him Jack, when Alex and fucking Mr. Giuliano and whatever are like doing shit to try to stop the boat, because it's like, we can't stop it, we gotta slow it down somehow, we gotta do this and that somehow, and they do something. I think it might be when they wrap the wire around it. That seems too late into the movie. It's like, I forget, they must have done something else to try to slow it down too.
Well, they flooded those rooms,
right? Okay, yeah, but yeah, they're doing a bunch of dumb shit to try to slow the boat down or whatever. And Geiger like realizes this.
Yeah,
he's like, oh geez, so he fucking types some shit into his computer. Probably the one on his arm, which was so silly. He just has like a keyboard that's attached to his arm that he can just go like, and then it makes everything happen. But at one point, his computer thing just says, modify course to compensate. Like it asks him, like, is that what you'd like to do? And he just goes like, yes. And then it just does it.
Yeah.
I was like, that is all you need to program into it?
Yeah.
It's just like, something is wrong. You, computer, figure out all of the shit that needs to go down to compensate for that. Mm-hmm. And the computer's just like, yep, and does it for him somehow. No idea how that could possibly happen, even now. Even with computer technology the way it is now, to just write into something like, modify the course to compensate for something that I have not prepared for.
Yeah.
And the computer just being like, gotcha. Like, I don't think that would ever happen, ever.
I mean, it might. You know,
I don't believe it. But the thing is that way early in the movie, when he starts setting up all these ridiculous things, I think one of my favorite moments is when he goes into the bridge and he's pretending to be drunk, just so he can like fuck with their shit, and then he slams that like receiver or whatever the fuck under one of their desk things, to like apparently to like take control or to do whatever.
That's the like transmitter or whatever.
And the camera like zooms in on it, like showing us, because it was like, I mean, I noticed it as soon as he did it because it was very clear. So I thought it was kind of like a little overkill to like do the whole like, look at the thing, because it's like, yeah, we know it's there, but the fact that it's like going in on it and it's beeping, it's like, you designed this thing and you know that it needs to be somewhere where it's not to be found. Yeah. And it's beeping. You jackass. Like, why would that be a thing?
Not very discreet.
Yeah. But when he is like typing in the new coordinates for the boat, because obviously they're supposed to be going one place, and he's like, oh, no, I'm going to make it go somewhere else. Yeah. He typed in some words, and I assumed it was a place. I assumed it was like a town or something that has
an island or
something that has fixed coordinates, so that you would know exactly where it is, so that the boat would not ever be wrong, because that's where it's supposed to be going. The thing that is called like Eindhoven Lion or whatever. And I was like, okay, that must be like a town or some shit. I don't know. It's the name of the oil tanker. Yeah. And I was like, you can just write in the name of a boat, like, and the fucking autopilot just knows where that boat is?
Apparently.
Like in the days way before GPS and shit, where like, I mean, maybe there's some sort of GPS, but not the way it is now, where it's like your phone could find a fucking boat on the ocean. But in 1997, there's no way that the computer system of a boat, even the extra computers that he brought on board, could possibly be like, oh yes. I mean, even if they knew, like, oh, the boat, it's over near this town. It's like, what if it literally just moves? Yeah. Like 100 feet to the left and you're wrong now. Yeah. Like, how could it possibly know? Like, absurd.
Was there a scene where he had like mind control or something? What the fuck was that?
Yeah, that confused the shit out of me. And at first I was like, oh my God, dude, I just totally not remember that Mr. Giuliano is in on it with him?
Yeah.
Because that's what it seemed like at first, because he says something, and then on the bridge, Mr. Giuliano says basically that exact same thing.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to Geiger, and he says a response to that. And then the captain says a very similar response back to him.
Yeah.
And it took me a few minutes to realize that I was like, okay, I think it's that he knows this, like he knows boat etiquette or whatever the fuck you want to call it. Like he knows procedure well enough to know that if this happens, this will be their response. And so he's listening to them and he's saying it. And when they say it, he knows that he's like on the right path. You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay, they're buying it. Because at first, all the shit that he does just like nominally changes what the boat's doing, like just a little bit.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, Captain, what's going on over here? You know, and fucking, and he's like, oh, something. And then that's when that happens where it was like, oh, that could be explained away as human error. And they're like, yeah, that happens sometimes. Like that's essentially all it is. But that whole scene, it made it seem like either he was controlling them or he was telling them what to say.
Yeah.
At first, I thought that was what was happening, that he was telling Mr. Giuliano what to say to like cover it up.
That's what I thought. And then the second person said something and I was like, wait,
yeah,
what?
That was so unnecessary and only led to confusion. Like that didn't help explain anything.
Yeah.
Like other than the fact that like thinking of it right now of like, oh, it probably meant that he just knows what he's doing real hard. And so that's what that was all about. But in the moment, you're just like, what the fuck is happening? And it totally like derails like any sort of semblance of like, I know what's happening in this movie. Suddenly you're like, all bets are off.
Yeah.
Maybe Alex is Jack and he's going to pull off like a Mission Impossible mask and it's Keanu Reeves underneath or something. Who knows at this point? Like the only thing that this movie has going for it is the fact that Geiger is Willem Dafoe. If it was someone with less like zaniness to him, it would have been such a bore. Those crazy eyes that he throws during that one scene, like that's a meme online. It's just like anything crazy, just throw that screenshot up of Willem Dafoe like it's insanity. And so many of his lines, there was a line towards the end that I mentally added the word Spider-Man to the end of it because all I could think of it was as the Green Goblin from Spider-Man. It was when he says, looks like your vacation's almost over, Spider-Man. Like it was so fucking silly. I thought that was hilarious. Like that whole ending, because it's like they're going towards the fucking oil tanker. They finally figure out how to turn the boat, like doing some fucking underwater shit. I don't care.
Yeah.
None of that. I really didn't care about any of that because I didn't care about either of the people doing it. It was like, oh no, Alex and Dante might drown. Like, I don't care.
Okay.
I really don't care. So many of the little bits of like attempted comic relief were so just like dumb. Like Dante taking pictures of everything. It's like, unless you're gonna show me those pictures later, movie, I don't care. And you're clearly not gonna, so
fuck off.
Yeah, just don't do that. But they finally figure out how to turn the boat so that it doesn't hit the oil tanker. And so instead it's aimed directly at this like port town and it's gonna fucking destroy it. For one, they turned that thing all the way to make the boat turn so that it wouldn't hit the oil tanker.
Yeah.
Why isn't it going in circles?
Because they could only correct it so far.
But like, it turns like hard. Like it turns like a full 90 degrees.
Because they keep turning the thing.
I know, but like is that
they have
not
to keep turning that to keep the the rudder like aimed in that direction.
So why didn't they keep doing it? Like I thought
they should have just kept turning it so that they just did a Yui.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like I thought it was that they cranked it all the way to one side so that the propeller would now be pushing it and the rudder would be aiming it so that it would turn, and then you would have to like turn it back to straighten it again. So it seems like it should have been still angled in the way for it to just like and just do a big huge 180.
Yeah.
But then it just runs into the fucking oil tanker kind of.
Yeah.
And then it gets aimed at the town and then it's just going straight for the rest of it. And it's like, if you can turn it in that tiny bit of space for it to not hit the fucking oil tanker, you can turn it again to not hit the town.
Yeah.
Like, you're the one who set this up, movie. You showed us that it's possible to turn this boat, and then you just forget about it a moment later when the stakes are even higher because of all the fucking civilians that you're clearly going to kill. And then one of my favorite lines, because it was just such like a just like, who fucking even cares anymore line from like the supposed hero of the movie, is when they're like, I forget if they've already started crushing the town or if they're about to crush the town, but Alex says, this isn't happening. And I was like, so our brave hero just rejects reality and is just like, well, I've done a bunch of things to save people, but this is just too far.
I give up.
I refuse to believe I am responsible for this. And well, whoever dies, dies. I don't care. And they fucking crash into the town, and it's fucking ridiculous.
After smushing a bunch of boats.
That explodes.
Yes. Yes, an exploding sailboat.
That was my favorite part.
Even like a small yacht, party boat.
Something that might have an engine on it.
Yeah, no.
This was clearly a sailboat, and it exploded into fire.
Yes. And
on the sea.
And then there was the like smaller little motorboat that like went off a ramp and into a building.
Yeah.
Like flying over the heads of people.
Oh yeah. And that fucking boat crash takes forever to the point where I just didn't care anymore at all. Yeah. And then when it ends with the fucking boat tip like dong hitting that bell, I was just like, can the movie be over now, please? Yeah. And it still wasn't.
It hit the bell and then it tipped over like a minute later.
Yeah. It was like, it's not even done being a fucking ending to the movie. Like, it ended and it's still going, and still Geiger's out there somewhere.
Yeah. With Annie.
Yeah, with Annie, who disappears for so much of the movie. That was another huge thing. It's like she was dumb and she was constantly sidelined.
Yep.
Like it was constantly like, Annie, you go over there. I'll go do the action thing.
You stay with the unsuspecting hostages. I'll go do all the cool stuff.
Yeah. Like, and again, like the idea of bringing the damsel from the first movie back without the hero is so silly. And it's like, maybe you should have fucking flipped the script.
Yeah.
And had the guy be the like, oh, I don't know, like a spooked guy who wouldn't want to get into it. And Annie's like, I got this. I've been through this. Yeah. I can do this. You know what I mean? Like you had the perfect opportunity to have like a really awesome, I mean, the movie probably still would have sucked if it had a similar script because it was nonsense.
Yeah.
But at the very least, you could have had like, hey, lady action movie, Sandra Bullock.
Yeah.
Fucking being the hero who has to like,
go.
Yeah, but like if she was the one who took out the bad guy or something, especially because she's sitting in the plane right next to him.
Yeah.
And it's like, all right, Annie, because obviously, you know, Geiger is going to essentially like kill himself, which is a bummer because like in the first movie, Jack kills. I forget the character's name, but Dennis Hopper.
Yeah.
He kills him because he's the bad guy. And I'm going to get you. And it has such a great one-liner.
Yeah.
Where he's, I'm taller. It's so funny. But it's like in that moment, it's like Geiger's in the plane or whatever. It's like it's clear that they're not going to like just like shoot him or just like push him into the water or something. It's like it's clear that Alex is going to get Annie off the plane.
Yeah.
And then Geiger's probably going to fly away. And so he has to do something himself that gets himself killed. You know, it's like unless Jack is going to suddenly find a sniper rifle and take him out from the ocean or whatever. It's super silly. So, you know, he's just going to take himself out. But like Annie gets out of the plane because Alex like jumps up into it, looks at her and is like, hey, babe, how you doing? And then Geiger just looks at them and is like, oh, no.
Yeah.
And doesn't do anything about it.
Yeah.
He just looks at them like, oh. And then Alex just punches him in the face and takes Annie and jumps out of the plane.
Yeah. Well, no, they stand on the pontoon.
Oh, and it falls off.
Yeah, because you're not supposed to stand on that.
Yeah. And then I guess they kind of kill him by sort of dismantling his plane, but it's still him not looking that gets him to crash
because it was clearly still flyable because he was able to pull up in time to miss the tanker the first time, the oil tanker. He like flies up and misses like ramming into the side of it and then doesn't pay attention and flies into a pole and then in the next scene he is spired on the pole.
That was the craziest thing too, because I remembered that he like gets stuck on I didn't remember that he got stuck on it. I knew that he crashed into it, and I thought that was it. I thought it was literally just like he looks up and he goes like, oh fuck, and hits it and it blows up and he's dead. But the fact that he like runs into it and somehow has skewered the plane onto it, even though he ran into the side of it, absurd.
Yeah, it's like he landed on it like a helicopter coming straight down as opposed to flying into it like an airplane would.
Yeah, it was super dumb. But then he dies that way. Whatever, I don't care.
Well, no, because that like causes a spark and drips.
Well,
whatever,
that's what I mean.
Blah, blah, blah. Oil tanker explodes. But the crew was able to evacuate, so
somehow.
That's good. Yeah.
Which was because he crashes into it and then they're like, everyone needs to leave. And somehow they're all like 400 feet away by the time it blows up. So it's like, how long was he in that plane dangling up there, just hanging out until the sparks happened that blew him up? But just going back to when they escaped from his plane, Annie's the one sitting right next to him. Why didn't she punch him? Why couldn't she get her moment? You know what I mean?
Her hands were still tied.
She could have just gone like blam. She could have clocked him with both fists or something.
Like how
or headbutted him.
Yeah.
She could have been a badass in that moment. And instead, he's literally is like, hold on, honey. I'm going to punch over you to punch the bad guy so I can get you out of here, damsel in distress. Super lame. Really hated it.
I wanted a little Gracie Lou Freebird to come out.
Yeah, really. It's just super dumb. And I did not like it.
Agreed.
And I mean, overall, that is basically my review for the movie. Is super dumb. Didn't like it.
Yep.
I'm trying to see if there's any other little bits that I forgot to talk about. Oh, okay. Real quick thing that I forgot to talk about. So they go into Geiger's room and they find the guy that I was certain that he had murdered.
Oh, me too.
And I was like, oh, he's not dead. Good for him, I guess. Whatever. But then they find his computers and Geiger starts talking to Alex over the computers.
Right.
Which is, again, one of those moments where it's like, do you know Alex?
Yeah.
Because he's talking to him and he uses his name. And at one point he even mentions like, how's Annie or something. And I was like, what? How do you know Annie? Like, did you see the first movie somehow? So you know that she's a main character? Like, it just seemed crazy that he learned the names of people who were not at all on his radar before this cruise.
Yeah.
Yet he knows their names and he knows that they're together and he can taunt them and all that shit.
Yeah.
But he's on the computer and he gives them warning that the computers are going to explode in their faces.
Yep.
And I was like, I know that that's like a trope, like a bad guy trope of like doing too much.
Yeah.
And, you know, letting the good guys escape because, you know, they're monologuing or whatever. But the fact that the screen says like, goodbye, Alex. And then he says something like that too. Like, oh, you better watch out. And it's just like, shut up.
Just let it explode.
You know what you should do? Is you should do like, I think it's in one of the Saw movies, honestly. And as weird as it is to bring that up as terms of like, do it like this movie because it's so good. But there's a scene where I think it's like the FBI agents or something. They come into a room and there's one of the little dolls sitting there and like a tape plays and it says something to them, you know, something menacing and whatever. And then all of a sudden it goes like, and it's like kind of whispering.
Yeah.
And one of them leans into it and then it blows up in their face.
Yeah.
It's like, that's the kind of shit you should do. You shouldn't warn them and be like, look out behind you or something, you know, whatever. You should just like try to lure them in. Like, oh, what does this say?
Yeah.
Be like, oh, what the fuck
Have a
does
really
it say?
tiny
Exactly. And just to get them to lean in and get blown up easier. But instead it gives them time to literally leap all the way out of the room into the hallway.
Yep.
And escape the explosions. God damn it. Also, just like, I don't know if there was something else going on that I didn't understand, but there's this scene when Alex goes back into that dance floor and Geiger is broadcasting his face on all those TVs.
And Alex keeps shooting them?
He shoots at them 3 times. And I like the first time I understood out of like shock.
Yeah.
Because they suddenly spring to life and he's like, holy fuck, and he fires. And it's like, oh, dummy, it's just a TV. Okay. But then he keeps shooting at them. And I'm like, you get that he's on TV, right?
Yeah, you know that that's not a real person right there standing there behind those glass boxes.
Yeah, like you know that the people on your TV aren't behind your TV, right? It's from far away. Oh, it was absurd. I was hoping that there was something that I was missing, or it was like maybe if he shoots the TVs, it'll reveal something. And then, no,
like, no, Geiger was off in a different corner.
Yeah. Like, if you had spent your time looking for that, you would have seen him before he ran away.
Yeah.
But instead, you shot the TVs 3 times because you're an idiot.
Like, he was monologuing for so long.
Yeah, really. I mean, I don't know. We have a few movies sort of lined up for the rest of this month in the hopes that we can watch that are completely unnecessary. I do not know if we will find one as unnecessary as this.
Yeah, that's going to be we really set the bar.
Set the bar pretty high, but we do have some pretty yeah, who knows really. But it's like we do have some pretty good leads on movies that we want to do for the rest of this month that might surpass it simply because of the greatness of the original movie. Like Speed is wonderful. And it's a great action movie, but it's not necessarily like one of the greatest films ever made.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's up there, but it's not there yet. But we have a couple of sequels in mind that are to movies that may be considered some of the greatest ever made.
Definitely in multiple like top 100 lists.
Oh yeah, easily. So it's like,
if not top 50.
Yeah, like the disparity between the greatness of the original and whatever the fuck we're gonna get out of these sequels that don't need to exist. I'm excited to find out.
Me too.
But I think that is going to wrap it up here for Popcorn for Dinner this week. This is Jeff.
And Callie.
Looks like your vacation's almost over.